What you are listening to is real. The participants are not actors. They are actual litigants with a case pending in the squared circle. Both parties have agreed to dismiss their cases and have their disputes settled here in our forum, the Turnbuckle Debate.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Turnbuckle Debate. My name is Sneed.
I'm Chad.
And I am Tom, the OG fake kid, the staple of the Turnbuckle Debate.
And we have a special guest on the show with us today from the Battleground Podcast, Mr. Timothy Battle. Timothy, how's it going, man?
Thank you guys for having me. It is a great night in Nashville. It just stopped raining, so hopefully it will stop. And hopefully this doesn't mess anything up on your guys' end from the internet. So
it's been that way here in West Virginia all day too. So
yeah, rain here just brings humidity, which is the worst.
It's the Nashville humidity is the worst ever. Luckily, we haven't had the cicadas like we did years ago just yet. But I'm inside in air conditioning in my little home studio, so we're good to go. So
we do have the cicadas here, and I cut my grass yesterday, and I was attacked by them. I almost stopped halfway through and called somebody to come do the grass. I'm like, I can't deal with this.
Hey Tom, next time that happens, film it so we can put that out on the Instagram.
No, because you'll see me doing the little girl bee dance, running around trying to get away from it.
Even better.
Timothy, tell our listeners a little bit about the Battleground Podcast.
Yeah, so we are a weekly wrestling podcast. We also have three girls that are amazing on the show. They are called the Battle Gals. They're kind of the ones that break down wrestling from the female perspective. And then me and my buddy Eli, we kind of break down everything from our perspective. And plus, we have guests that come on the show. Coming up soon, we've got Rosemary from Impact Wrestling. She's going to be on the show this week talking about Against All Odds and her big match for the Impact Women's Championship. And we just kind of tell it like it is. And some people don't like when we start really telling how the wrestling product is.
Yeah. Wrestling fans get hot about that, man. You can't speak the truth sometimes.
Yeah. The IWC, man, they get so worked up over things. So
yeah.
Gotta love them though, man.
Oh yeah. We're a part of it. We get it.
And my thing is I'm part of it as well. I add fuel to that fire. It so happens that I have a microphone to add fuel to that fire as well. So
it's a lot more fun when you have a microphone to add that fuel.
It is very fun when you have that fuel. So, but yeah, we've been doing it for about 2 years now. Officially, it's been 2 years of strictly wrestling. When I first started it, it was kind of like a hodgepodge of just random stuff because in radio, they're like, hey, you do a radio show. Why don't you make a podcast and put your interviews up? So if you go back to like the very early Battleground podcast, like our first guest ever was Adam Page when he was with Ring of Honor.
Oh, wow.
And then the next week was Bob Saget. And then like, it was just kind of like random Christopher Titus. So if you go back to the early years of it, it was just random. And then about 2 years ago was when we were like, hey, let's just talk about wrestling. There's not enough wrestling podcasts out there, so let's just talk about wrestling, you know? But it's great though to see all of these great guys out there doing wrestling podcasts like you guys, and Busted Open's kind of helped clear the way for a lot of people. And it's like everybody has a wrestling podcast, and it's great to listen to everybody's opinion because, well, you know what they say about opinions and buttholes. So
yeah, exactly.
It's always good to hear from other people's takes of wrestling. So
exactly. I mean, this show is a testament to it. We love having those opinionated wrestling fans that have shows come on and, debate some topics with us.
Yeah. And that's fun. I'm glad to be here because I'm ready to come. I brought some stuff to debate with. So
we'll do it.
Well, I think with that, then we just get right into it. So what we'll do, we have 3 topics. We'll go 10 to 12 minutes on each topic. All right. Kind of do a round table and just let everybody go at it.
Yeah, man.
All right. So let's get into it. We'll do our first topic of the evening. The first topic is predictability a good thing in professional wrestling?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's good, and I think it's better when you think you see the obvious thing that's going to happen and it doesn't. You know, I mean, especially when you've watched it and you love it as much as we all do, like you could just tell when certain things are going to happen. And that's one of the things I loved at AEW. I looked at the Casino Battle Royale and I'm like, 4 people left. I'm like, oh man, Christian is going to win this. Like it kind of seemed like that going in, he was going to be the winner. And then it didn't happen. It made it even better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think predictability is, I mean, of course, I love a good surprise. However, I think predictability is a good thing. I think it is good sometimes to have that predictability, because sometimes what you think is supposed to happen, when it happens, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I think it's both. It's one of those questions. It's not one or the other. You got to have both. You got to have the unpredictability, the surprises. Wrestling is built on that. But predictability sometimes is the necessary thing. I think about Britt Baker. When Britt Baker won that title, if she wouldn't have won that title, the backlash would have been awful. We all thought she was going to win. She deserved to win, and she won. Now, the thing with predictability versus like a surprise, unpredictability, I think the backlash of not paying off a predictable thing is worse than the backlash of a surprise that doesn't land. Like when Tony Khan's like, oh, we got this big signee, he's a Hall of Famer, and everyone's instantly CM Punk, Brock Lesnar, all of these thoughts, and then it's Christian Cage. Now I love Christian Cage, but they set that surprise up and it failed for a lot of fans because they instantly your mind starts going in all these places. So I think the backlash of not landing predictability is worse than the backlash of a surprise gone wrong.
And Chad, kind of going to piggybacking off what you said about the Christian thing, it was like the big hype for it. And then Christian comes out, does like a victory lap, doesn't even pick up or touch a microphone,
right?
Does a victory lap, does his, the gesture, look out to the crowd. I think there was a crowd at the time, and then signs the paper and then walks back to the tunnel. Like, you hype the big thing up. And I know that there was reports that TNT was like, hey, stop announcing surprises, do this. And, like Thomas said, it's a double-edged sword with predictability. Prime example, going back to WrestleMania. On the show, we had this big discussion on our podcast that Roman Reigns was going to lose the title. There was no reason for to add Daniel Bryan if Roman wasn't going to lose, because that way Roman doesn't eat the pin, Edge pins Daniel Bryan or vice versa. And then you continue the storyline of Roman's like, I didn't lose, I didn't get pinned, blah, 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 blah. And also Daniel Bryan was on his last leg out. So of course, everybody's like, it's going to be Daniel Bryan. They're going to give him the title one last time, and then he's going to go off in the sunset as a champion and then probably go wrestle in New Japan. Right. And I think the predictability, it's once again, like Thomas said, it's a double-edged sword. The other thing that I hate really much about predictability is if there's like a big pay-per-view and I'm scrolling through social media and all the dirt sheets, so-and-so spotted backstage, so-and-so spotted backsstage.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I try to stay off social media the day of big events. Like when they made, when Kaz Morrison showed up at Impact.
Right.
They're like, Kaz is showing up, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, that kind of eliminates the oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's, I like to be back in the old days when, yes, it was taped in the 90s, but you didn't have all this access to figure out what was going on.
Exactly. You had to subscribe to the Wrestling Observer to get that.
Exactly.
Get that. Yeah.
And I love the not knowing what's going to happen. Like going back to AEW's The Casino Battle Royal, like no idea that it was going to be Leo Rush, and, sad to see him retire, but, I mean, everybody had their own thoughts of who it was going to be. They thought it was going to be Andrade. And of course, weeks later he showed up, but nobody knew he was going to show up. And that was when I was like, oh my God, like Andrade's here. It's going to be good. Could it be good with them, him and Vicky Guerrero being paired together? I think it's going to work, but it's just that predictability. And
yeah,
it seems like it's not there now.
No, when you're talking about predictability like that, when you're talking about a surprise being ruined by dirt sheets or people digging for those surprises and uncovering them, I hate that type of predictability. I hate that. Now, the only predictability that I think is good in pro wrestling is the storylines. Like I'll lean back on Britt Baker. You know, we didn't know the outcome of that, but everyone knew.
Right.
you know she's got to go over.
Yeah.
And I think in a situation like that, predictability is that thing. You're giving the fans what they want. And you do have that small section of fans that'll be like, oh, we all knew she was going to win. But it's like, dude, you would be pissed if she didn't win. Like, if
for sure.
Shida won, like, you don't do a swerve for the sake of a swerve.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
if we're talking about that, man, there's nothing when a surprise is, which is why now like everybody has said, stay off dirt sheets. The day when Sting came out, genuinely shocked. And that was such a good feeling, because I don't think I'd really had that feeling since the Hardy Boys at WrestleMania.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I get, as you talk about that, like literally just got goosebumps, because I remember when that happened and just hearing that arena erupt. And like you said about Britt Baker, man, I mean, we all knew that Britt was going to win. Like, if it wasn't going to be Britt that beat Shida, who was going to beat her?
Yeah.
Right.
And I like being able to say, you know what, they have to win. And I've been wrong a lot of times when I've predicted it. I always thought that, some of the bigger guys were going to beat Moxley and for the title. And I was like, oh, okay, Lance Archer's going to beat him. Nope, that didn't happen. Brian Cage is going to beat him. Nope, that didn't happen. Yeah. And then I was like, well, Kenny Omega is probably not going to beat Moxley, because, I mean, if Moxley has gone through the big guys, then he's just going to run through Omega. And then I was like, oh, crap, like he just beat Omega, just won. So, I like predicting it, but then also it's the same thing of like being a part of the IWC. We get mad when we're like, oh, that should have happened. Oh, screw you, WWE, for not doing this the right way.
Yeah.
But here's another thing too, man, with Omega, speaking of Omega, at Double or Nothing, we all knew Omega's going to beat Pac and Orange Cassidy. We all knew it was going to happen. But man, if they did not take us for a ride with Orange Cassidy.
Absolutely.
Dude, I was going to say this right before you started saying it. That match, you went in saying, okay, Omega's going to win. I went in thinking, okay, Omega's going to win, to thinking, oh my God, is Orange Cassidy going to win this? Because they made it seem believable, to like, oh, damn, he didn't win. Like they took us for such a ride. That match was amazing. And going back to the Christian thing, if there's no surprise announcement and he just shows up, it's a much better received than the way they did it. Like, you got to stop promising surprises.
Absolutely.
It's like going back to Double or Nothing. No announcement of there's going to be something big happening. Here just comes Mark Henry strolling out.
Yep.
Right. Exactly.
Yep.
That's what you want.
And, and I sit here and think, down the line, I think that, Moose, and I'm predicting it, I think Moose will beat Omega, because looking at Moose's current situation, he's about to be out of that contract at Impact. I'm pretty sure that they want to keep him there. They're going to give him the title. And that's what I like to predict, is I always like to look at, okay, are they about to be out? That's the other prediction thing that I look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm leery of how they're going to go about this, though. I don't know if I see a title change happening at Against All Odds. I almost think they're going to push that title change to Slammiversary, bigger event, kind of their marquee event. And aren't they like possibly bringing Sami Callihan into the mix and making it a 3-way?
That's what they're thinking about. But then you also got to think, okay, is Rich Swann going to get that rematch with Omega?
Right.
And I kind of thought, talking still about predictability, I was kind of predicting that Rich Swann was going to be that guy that comes up at the last entry in the Casino Battle Royale and be like, hey, look, you took my Impact title. I'm coming to take your AEW title.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought the entire time. Like, I was like, okay, we haven't heard from Rich. He's nowhere to be found. All of a sudden his music hits. Fans are there. He comes out, does his little dance. He wins. And he's like, all right, I'm coming for all my belts.
Now he's got a big, angry William W. Morrissey just breathing down his neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Well, anybody have any final thoughts on the predictability topic?
No, I think it's one of those things where you can't say, yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Like you guys said, I think we love surprises as wrestling fans, but at the same time, sometimes that predictability, if it doesn't pay off, we're pissed as well. So just goes to show you the IWC, you can't really please us. We're going to be mad one way or the other.
No dirt sheets leading up to an event. I think that's pretty much the.
No social media either, because people just like to spoil it for you now.
Oh,
too.
Yeah.
I'll stay off of everything.
and we've also tried to scale back like live tweeting shows, because we've had people like, hey, I'm not watching the show tonight, and I had to mute you or unfollow you because you're live tweeting. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, you're going to open up Twitter tomorrow and see everything. So
Right.
I think that's the fans' responsibility to stay off. I think you should be allowed to live tweet if it's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you should know as a fan that if you're going to go on social media, you're going to
have it ruined.
to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm not watching the shows, that's how I follow along is social media. Like
Yep.
I didn't pay money for that Floyd Mayweather Jake Paul fight or what, Logan Paul or
Same.
whoever it was. I just watched all the videos on YouTube and watched it on Periscope. So
I did the same thing.
Yeah,
I did the same thing.
man.
Yep. That's $50 a pop. That's $200 right here. that
Exactly.
Nobody paid.
Yeah.
And nobody should have paid.
And there's another boxing match Friday that people are like, is this really going to happen? And it's Lamar Odom versus Aaron Carter. So, I mean,
Here we go.
Oh man. That's
and
another one.
Chuck Liddell is the special guest referee. So tell me that's not a wrestling angle right there at all.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. What wrestling promotion is this for?
Yeah, gotta love freak show fights.
Yeah.
It should be fun to watch though. But yeah.
All right. So we'll move on to the next topic. And this topic is Battle. You brought this topic to the table, and is AEW following in the footsteps of early TNA? And we'll let you go ahead and kick this one off.
Yeah. So I was there, and we discussed this on Instagram. I was there for the original TNA days. It was they did a show in Alabama, then they did the show in Nashville for Municipal Auditorium, because I remember the match at Municipal Auditorium was Jeff Jarrett versus Ken Shamrock for the NWA World Heavyweight title.
Wow.
And it was at Municipal, and like, I don't think they really advertised anything. And like, I sit back and look at that first show, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Sabu, Shamrock, Jarrett, all these big name guys that, had just been released from WCW and WWE or WWF, whatever it was at the time. And then it progressed each week. And it was more and more of the big name guys and mixed with like the no name guys, like CM Punk showed up there and AJ Styles and all this other stuff. So when you look at it, you kind of think, is AEW right now like the early TNA days? I know a lot of people compare Cody and Jeff Jarrett, but if you look at it, Cody really hasn't, other than getting only person gets to enter through the middle of the stage and getting pyros and WrestleMania-esque entrances. I mean, Cody really doesn't put himself over like people think. People want to get mad at Cody. I get it. Like, Cody's the easy target to be like, Cody Rhodes, it's always his fault. He gets to do an announcement about how he's having a girl that nobody else does, and this and this and this, and coming out as Homelander at Double or Nothing,
Right.
And everybody wants to give crap to Cody because Cody is just Cody. But you see the comparisons with him and Jarrett, but the thing is Cody took himself out of the title picture first shot that he had. He's like, I'm not challenging for it. I can't tell you how many times, and I love Jeff Jarrett to death, by the way, really good friend. But I can't tell you how many times he had the title around his waist when he was running the company.
Right.
And you look at it, and each week big names came in that everybody knew. You had the little cream of the crop guys rising up. It's like AEW, the big name guys are there. And you've got the guys that people know on the indies starting to rise up. All the people on AEW Dark. Ziggy Dice was on there the other night.
I loved it.
So it looks like they're going the way of the TNA days. But I mean, it seems like Tony has a little bit more structure and a little bit more, here's what we're doing. We're not having all these cooks in the kitchen right now.
I tend to agree with you. Now, a lot of times, like when I hear fans say, "Oh, all AEW is TNA 2.0 or WCW 2.0, bringing in old WWE stars. I think they're not like the TNA that a lot of fans remember, which is when Hogan and Bischoff and all those guys show up. But if we're talking about early TNA, I tend to agree with you because a lot of these guys, like Sting came in, I think in 2001, he started doing TNA shows.
I believe so.
Kurt Angle didn't show up till around 2006, I believe. So like, you know, Hall, Nash, all those guys showing up. These guys weren't necessarily like extremely over the hill yet. And I feel like, you know, with WCW, when they were bringing in the Hogans and Macho Mans, their golden years were kind of behind.
They were
them.
done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of the Hollywood Hogan run, which, you know, they kind of padded that. But I tend to agree with you. Like, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a lot of fans look at TNA as this company that never really saw success, or there's almost like this negative stigma with TNA. But if you look back, dude, look at the roster today in WWE. There are so many. I mean, of course, they just released Samoa Joe, but the Samoa Joes, AJ Styles, there was something there, man. And it took them a while, you know, in those early days to really build it. But if you look at like 2011 TNA, that was arguably better storytelling going on in that company than WWE at the time.
Yeah. And, you know, once kind of, and I remember a lot of the stuff, I mean, they brought in some of the older ECW guys to start showing up there. Like Dreamers showed up, Raven. I remember, and God rest his soul, New Jack was there. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world because I handed him my chair that I was sitting in and he hit somebody with it. I don't know who it was, but I mean, they just had, I mean, so many great people showed up, and I'm just kind of looking at like some of the rosters online, and like, I mean, at the time when they first started, they didn't really have much of a women's division, and it's kind of like how AEW was at first. They didn't have very many women on the roster at the moment,
right?
And now you look and they have an influx of women on the roster, and it's great to see Britt Baker and Nyla Rose and Shida, and bringing people in from Japan that nobody in America would know who they are, except for like, you know, the indie guys or the diehard fans like us.
Right.
And it's putting them on TV to let them show, hey, this is what we do over here. Check this out.
And, you know, talking about going back to comparing Jarrett to Cody, you know, Cody has to answer to Tony Khan. Like Tony Khan is the final, where Jarrett, wasn't he in total control back then?
It was I believe it was Jarrett and his dad.
And Jarrett and his dad. So if he wanted to put the belt on himself, he could have put the belt on himself. If Tony Khan feels fit that he wants to put the belt on Cody, it's not Cody's decision in the end. It's going to be Tony's decision. And he's going to do what's best for AEW. So I don't think it's really fair to compare them as much either, if that makes sense.
No, and that makes perfect sense. I mean, Tony is doing the right thing. I think when it came to, and I mean, me and you, Chad, were talking about it, listening to Conrad and Jarrett talking about these early years on this podcast, which is great to hear. I think like when it started, Shamrock was going to be the champion, and then he won it in Alabama. And I think there was, I want to say, and it's probably, I could be wrong, but them starting this promotion also was the way to get back the NWA title to the Jarretts, I believe. Which is why it was NWA TNA.
Right.
And it was the weirdest thing ever when it was there. But I mean, you look at the people that were there on the early things of like, you had Ken Shamrock, Kenny Omega was there earlier. I mean, and I'm just kind of scrolling through, D'Lo was there. A lot of people started rolling in through there. I mean, they had Okada there.
Yeah, man.
And, of course, they dropped the ball on it
big time.
But you look at all the people that have been through Impact, and it's like, where are they now? And everybody is around. And a lot of people go back and say, if it wasn't for those early NWA TNA days, I wouldn't be where I'm at now.
Yeah. Do you think that I feel like the difference is, I feel like AEW at the current state they're in, they are leaning a little more on developing their young talent more than TNA in those early days. They were leaning a little more on bringing in those ECW guys, WCW guys, they weren't putting, and maybe that's because they didn't have that weekly national TV show but that's one thing I feel like AEW doesn't get enough credit for is they've been around for a little over 2 years, and look at the homegrown stars they've built. You know, the Orange Cassidys, the MJFs, the Jungle Boys, the Darbys. I feel like they have done a very good job of building those homegrown stars quickly. Because I mean, AJ, man, it took AJ a minute to really find his groove outside of just being a spectacular X Division guy.
Mm-hmm. And sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say one big difference I think is, you know, when in the early TNA days, they weren't they doing $9.99 every week, like a pay-per-view
every Wednesday?
I think that's what it was. Cause like when I went, it was kind of funny. There wasn't really much advertising around Nashville. Somehow we figured out they gave away free comp tickets every week. And so all the people on the outside and where we sat, that was where we sat, and they were free comp tickets. And then what they would do is after the night was over, when you were leaving, they were giving you the comp tickets to come back the following week.
Okay.
And I got to give it to them because I still have some of those tickets, but they were just like these little bitty cardboard, like something you would print off at a Kinko's, and it just said NWA TNA free admission, and it was for the following date for the next week, and then it had like all the rosters sitting there, and it was just screen printed on, like 1 week it was a blue ticket, 1 week it was pink, 1 week it was red, and that was how they filled it up, because they were giving away the free tickets, and then they were selling the ringside tickets. Oh, and wow. I don't know how much those were because I never sat there, because I was like, why would I pay if I'm getting free tickets? So
But yeah, I think that's a big difference, because if they were doing $9.99 per week, you know, with with AEW, they're doing quarterly pay-per-views and then their weekly shows on a major network. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one difference where I think they stand apart from early TNA days. But I do agree that there are a lot of comparisons where you can say they are like an early TNA. Yeah,
because when you're behind a paywall like that, I can see why you would lean a little heavier on the guys that people already know.
Right.
It's going to be more difficult for you to lean on young talent, because it's not going to make people pull that wallet out and pay every week.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a national television show, you don't have to rely as much on people paying. So you kind of have that leeway where you can give a little more time to the young guys.
Yeah.
And you know, speaking of paying, like the first time that when I saw AEW do a pay-per-view and it was $50, I was like, what the hell, man? Like I got so accustomed to paying $10 for WWE Network, and I'm like, I'm about to shell out $50 for a pay-per-view, like,
right.
And I blame the network for it.
Yeah,
it's so true. But the fact that
they
they don't do it monthly and it's only every 3 months for a year, I don't mind spending it as much as if it was WWE. At the end of their pay-per-views, like, man, am I really spending $50 or $60 again just to get another pay-per-view? It became too much. So I really respect AEW keeping it, you know, quarterly. And now I'm looking forward to their other specials on TNT coming up.
Yeah, and that's the smart thing that they've done, is like they've built these stories up, and it like you said, Thomas, it makes you want to buy it. Now, granted, the exploding death ring match, that kind of was like,
yeah, man.
But, you know, other than that, like, I don't mind. The first time, yes, I was like, this is going to hurt my wallet kind of thing. I don't want to pay for this. But after that, I was like, you know, that's cool. So,
yeah, I feel like they've done a good job at building hype for these events, and outside of the exploding barbed wire death match, they typically deliver on them. And you know, WWE, that network has definitely spoiled us. And if AEW was doing a pay-per-view a year, the model would not work. Fans aren't going to pay $50 a month to see anything now. But so I guess there's some UFC fans that would, but I mean, Double or Nothing, if the reports I read are right from Meltzer, I think Double or Nothing did 125,000 buys. Like that's pretty damn good for a wrestling company to hit that number.
Yeah.
And every time they have a pay-per-view, their numbers are consistently going up.
Yeah.
So they're bringing in the people. They're doing something right.
And their weekly ratings are going up every week, with the exception if it's on Friday night because of NBA, but that doesn't count.
Yeah, we got to get them off that. I saw somebody say they need to get them off the Girls Gone Wild time slot.
I am interested though, in seeing how the ratings will look when they switch to TBS.
Yeah, I am too.
So
I think it will benefit them though to not be preempted though. If they can stay on Wednesdays on TBS and never be preempted, I think they'll kind of like start to actually form that relationship with the audience where they like every Wednesday, 8:00, you kind of
here's where it's at.
Yeah. I mean, Raw kind of dealt with the Westminster Dog Show in the early days, but that was once a year, so they kind of
it's still funny that happens though.
Yeah.
And back then we didn't know about it. And it was always, you turn it on and just be pissed.
Oh, I'd be so mad.
Yeah.
And then you just watch Nitro.
That's so true.
Yeah, flip over to Nitro.
Hey, listen,
probably
on
3 weeks.
TBS, they're going to have to deal with baseball in October for the playoffs, but it'll be a few weeks.
I don't think that'll be as bad as what basketball is, though.
Because the only other thing I think will be March Madness, right? Because March Madness runs it on TBS, TNT, True TV, all those.
Well, March Madness isn't on Wednesdays anyway. It's usually Thursday through Sunday.
And you've got to think when they did this deal to move, part of that deal had to be like, if you move to TBS, you won't be as preempted. I feel like if they're moving into a slot where they're dealing with the same problems of TNT, why would they make the move? I don't know. I'd be interested to know.
The ratings might have dropped on Friday, but that doesn't mean people still aren't DVRing it because it's now on at 10:00, or they're not streaming it the next day. So it's not really accurate. The whole rating system is outdated anyway.
Yeah, trust me, I know all about the ratings because of radio, so I know.
It's 2021, and we're still using a system that they used in the 60s and 70s. So
yeah, and I saw a report come out that because everyone's flipping shit because AEW at 10:00 on Friday nights did like 500,000 views, but I saw a report where when they do the 3-day DVR, when they count all those up, they're hitting about the same numbers that they typically do. People just aren't watching live. They're catching up on the weekend when they can.
And to be completely honest, I almost forgot about AEW on Friday night until I was scrolling through Twitter. And I was like, oh, it's on tonight.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we have one more topic to get into for the evening, and we'll just jump right into it. So, are the Young Bucks the best tag team out today?
Such a tough question. It's just a matter of opinion. I mean, I love this version of the Young Bucks in the ring. Their work is amazing. There's no denying that. But I honestly love FTR in the ring as well. I don't, they both have amazing styles. To me, it's a toss up between those two right now. I can't really pick one is better than the other.
I'm definitely an FTR guy. Love FTR, but the question should be right now. Who is it right now? Not in the grand scheme of who, as far as storyline right now, who is the best tag team? And if I am an FTR guy, I think they're probably the best tag team going right now from a technical in-ring standpoint. But if you're talking about the storyline right now, who is the most entertaining tag team right now? I think it's the Young Bucks, man. I think they are hitting their groove as heels.
If you're going by storyline entertaining right now, it's definitely the Young Bucks because I haven't enjoyed them as much as I've enjoyed them lately. So
and they've got amazing shoes, by the way.
Yeah.
As a shoe guy myself, I'm like, oh, you're wrestling in $10,000 shoes. That hurts my heart.
Yeah.
So the blood on the Dior's kind of hurt a little bit, huh?
I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
As a shoe guy. But yeah, I was never going back. I was never really a Young Bucks fan because to use the word that the IWC calls them, at one point in time, every time I watched their matches, it was just spot. That's all it was. And that's what everybody called them, spot monkeys. And that was the thing that I didn't like when I would watch them. I was like, oh, it's predictable. Super kick. Oh, there it is. They're going to do something. But now this new Young Bucks, like y'all were talking about, is fun to watch. Like the other night at Double or Nothing when they did the Shield mocking.
Yeah.
And, I would say that they're probably taking shots jokingly at Seth Rollins with some of their ring gear.
Yes. Yes.
So they're very entertaining to watch. But I really think if you want to get down to the best tag team when it comes to wrestling, it is going to be FTR.
I can't disagree with you. They're my team.
Yeah. And we had them on the podcast a couple months back, and we talked to them about that. And this was at the time when James Storm and Eli Drake were still a tag team. And we asked them the question about seeing them in a match. And we would have liked to see that. Like when you look at it, yes, tag team wrestlers right now, it is for sure FTR. But when it comes to entertainment, it's the Bucks.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's the perfect way to describe it.
So who would be, I think this is an indictment on the way WWE books their tag team divisions, where they don't book anyone really strong. They break tag teams up so much. There's an argument to be made for the New Day over the last 3 or 4 years, I would say. But right now in WWE, none of us are arguing it, but is there a team out there that someone could argue is currently, with the storyline they're in the argument for greatest tag team from WWE?
I mean, the only team I would say, and if you go back and watch some of their NXT matches, you would see it more than their what they're doing on Raw, is the Viking Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
They had some amazing matches back in NXT. They were even after they were called up to the main roster, when they had that whole Survivor Series angle, they went back to NXT and had a match that was so much better than anything they were allowed to do on Raw. I don't know why they don't allow them to be that team.
Oh, dude, they were phenomenal in ROH too. War Machine, like they were really good. I mean, Usos. Everyone always says Usos, but currently, I don't know if you could argue that.
Here's who I'm thinking, and this is kind of like my dark horse of it. But you look back at the Impact Day, MSK, or as a lot of people know, as the Rascals.
Yeah,
very entertaining. Give me them and the Young Bucks right now.
Oh yeah, I even like grizzled young vets, man.
Yeah, and for them to come up short each year for the Dusty Classic,
yeah,
you feel bad for them, but that's the thing, is like WWE just throws teams together. Like I really thought that Cesaro and Sheamus were going to be an unstoppable team.
Yeah, the Bar.
And they were over. And then it's like, it feels like it's something back there, and they're like, oh, this tag team's over. Let's split them up and let's create tag teams. Like never would I have thought you put Matt Riddle and Randy Orton as a tag team.
yeah, RK Bro.
But you know what? It's kind of shocking. It's one of the most entertaining things the most entertaining thing on Raw right now.
Yeah. And that's the thing with WWE, is they just kind of throw tag teams like Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler.
Right.
I see the angle for the Mysterio and Dominic, father, son. Yes, I get that. But outside of that, they don't really have tag teams, and that's why they're not really featured very often, because
they haven't had tag teams for a long time.
Right.
No.
Right. And honestly, talking about RK Bro, just knowing how WWE is, all that is a setup to Randy Orton versus Matt Riddle. It's going to implode soon.
That goes back to our first topic. Like you could see the predictability of why they're doing it already. Like they're trying to, it's leading to that, and to get some of that goofiness off of Riddle and give him a more serious role.
Right.
Is the way I'm reading it. Because you've
Randy's
already
a hell of a
seen him
worker.
in matches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Riddle's great.
Yeah, Riddle. I think Riddle's gonna, if they could call him, if he doesn't go running when his contract's up, he could be the head of the company for a while. If you
one tag team, I think that we haven't mentioned that should always be in the discussion, and maybe they're edging a little closer to the back half of their career, but you gotta say the Briscoes.
Yeah,
ROH. I mean, they're always. I would love to see. I think I saw Dax Harwood comment on someone's question about what team would you love to face that's not currently in AEW, and he said "Dem Boys," because the Briscoes, they're so good, man, and they're good on the mic. They're a total package team, like a Young Bucks or an FTR.
Yeah, we we had them on the show and we asked them about that. The Briscoes, and without hesitation, FTR. That was what it was. And you want to see, and the Briscoes have been kind of the face of Ring of Honor. They didn't jump ship when everybody did.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you kind of want to see them, go to AEW for a little bit.
Yeah, get those fantasy matchups. And I think what you just said, Battle, says a lot about FTR being possibly the best tag team right now. Is whenever tag teams in other companies are asked about what team do you want to work with, it's almost always FTR.
It is.
Yeah.
It's almost always FTR. And everyone, we all wanted to see the Bucks and FTR, and that match was incredible. And I think there is that argument. Who is it, the Bucks or FTR? And I think it comes down to a style preference. And I definitely FTR are my dudes. I just think right now they're tied up in this faction war. But I will say, if that faction war gets focused and it becomes Santana and Ortiz in a long feud with FTR having matches, that could put them over the top of the Bucks right now.
Just take my money right now.
Yeah.
See, Santana and Ortiz are my pick for one of the best tag teams out right now. And I think that they should be the next tag team to have a title run.
I agree.
And it's crazy that they haven't had one.
They've only had one. They've only had one title match in AEW. It's crazy,
mind blowing.
And you sit there and look at it, and it's like, look at all the great matches that they had with Lucha Bros back in Impact.
Yep,
so good.
And it's like, Santana and Ortiz. Not only are they hell of a workers, but Santana sells every spot, and Ortiz sells every spot.
Yep.
And it's comedy gold the way they sell it.
Yeah.
But it's you look at it and be like, oh, that's a little way too much there, bud. But they're very entertaining.
Oh, it's like when Ortiz got his bell rung in the first Stadium Stampede, and it's like over the top, but it's fun.
Right. Or when the what was it? The orange juice came down on him, and he completely just slipped
swimming.
Yeah.
Yes. Just swimming in orange juice.
Well, it reminds me of Rick Rude taking an atomic drop.
Yes.
Whenever he would it was so over the top and ridiculous, but it was fun. So you kind of let it slide.
And that's what I want to see is, I want to see Santana and Ortiz get those titles in AEW. Do I want to see Scorpio and Ethan Page? That's another tag team that just kind of gets thrown together, but they're great.
They
work together. Who would have ever thought the the Varsity Blondes? Hillman and Griff Harrison. Nobody knew who Griff was. There was the chance of who's Griff Harrison.
Yeah.
We were at Double or Nothing, and the whole weekend, anytime the Blondes came out, the crowd popped hard.
Yeah, they're
for the Blondes.
They're a future big team for that company. I feel like they've built them very well too. And to see Griff, like we had Griff on like a month into him and Brian tagging.
It was before they had, I think it was 2 weeks before they started the Varsity Blondes name.
They had some matches on Dark, but they hadn't got the name yet.
They didn't match their gear. The only thing they were coming out and doing was the camera roll.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
And to see how far those guys have came is very impressive.
Right. And it's lightning in a bottle. The other thing that from a marketing standpoint is having Jurassic Express not win the titles.
Right.
Because Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are so over and they appeal to the kids.
Yeah.
And then you have Marco that comes out there as well. So do you throw in the Freebird rule for certain matches when you know that they're going to lose it? So you just Marco, hey, go get annihilated, take the pin so we can get the titles off somebody else. But that's another reason. And I said this the other day on our show. I was like, I say that in the next year to 2 years, Jungle Boy will have the AEW title around his waist.
Yeah.
I could see it.
Wow. I mean, I could see it. I don't know if it'd be that soon, but that guy's got quite a future ahead of him. But I think it's so awesome right now that we're talking about a company that takes tag team wrestling so serious again, and that we have this many tag teams to talk about compared to what WWE has.
And we
with their
haven't
tag
even
division.
mentioned Lucha Brothers.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
they're
yeah, that's right.
like,
It's another amazing team that hasn't had the titles.
right.
And, you know, some people would say that AEW did at first have a faction problem. Like
Right.
every week it was a new faction. It was like Death Triangle with Lucha Bros and Pac, which was like a random, like, we're going to throw people together. And,
Right.
and, you know, you see the rumors online that there could be possibly a 6-man tag team title coming soon. And Cody has a big announcement Friday night. Is it Friday night? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
it Friday night? So he's got a big announcement. So could we see 6-man tag team titles? I think so. And if anybody gets those, I would say that either you give it to Jurassic Express just because they're so over right now, and, you know, have Marco have the title and whatnot, or you give it to Lucha Bros and Pac comes out and they bring Death Triangle back, which they attempted to for all of 2-3 weeks that they had Death
Right.
Triangle,
Yeah.
and then it just magically disappeared and nobody talked about it.
And you also have best friends hanging out.
Yeah.
With Orange Cassidy, you could throw the titles on them. I have always been kind of against the 6-man belts, but if any company has the amount of people to pull that off, it would be AEW.
Yeah. And
Dark
you
Order.
look at
Dark Order.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, and kind of speaking about Dark Order, everybody's like, you've got to replace Brody. You got to replace Brody. And I don't think, and I know we're getting way, way off topic, but I don't think that you need to replace Brody right now or ever
either.
because they're good where they're at.
Yeah.
And I would like to see Dark Order get that 6-man tag, and maybe they get it first. And maybe Brody Jr. is the one that kind of helps them get that title, you know?
Yeah.
But they're doing everything right. And I know that I had the debate topic of early TNA days, and early TNA days, they were doing everything right.
Yeah.
But then eventually when things started changing and ownership started coming in and different people started putting their hands in the cookie jar, that's when everything went downhill. And as of right now, everything's going good. Now, is it kind of weird that the people that are in charge are also wrestling? I could see where some people on the roster are like, I don't know how I feel about my boss being the world heavyweight champion, and I can't get anywhere past the first 5 minutes on YouTube on Dark, you know?
Right. Right.
But it, you know, when we talked to Lance, he said that it's been great having Dark, and you have AEW Dynamite, and then this new show that they're doing, and then all these other shows that they're doing. So they're building up that roster, and it also helps that Cody literally has the Nightmare Factory, because that's where a lot of these people are coming from that are filling in for the dark matches and all this other stuff.
And I've heard them say, I think it was in Cody's Scrum, he talked about the beauty of going back on the road is when they're taping Elevation or Dark, they'll be able to tap those local indie scenes. Because now these guys have been, you know, there's a lot of Georgia guys, a lot of Florida guys, obviously. And, you know, this past Dark, we saw Matt Justice, who's kind of a Ohio, he's absolute intense wrestling out of Cleveland. They're coming down there. So there's a lot of guys who travel to Jacksonville to be on that show. But when they start traveling, they'll really start to tap into indie scenes all over the country.
Yeah. I'm ready to see Mance Warner on AEW.
Oh, man.
yeah.
Give me him and Hangman Adam Page.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man.
I love Mance. Love Mance.
Just set it up as a drinking match and then head it to the ring. That's all you got.
Yeah.
Hey, man, make the trip over to West Virginia in July. There's a promotion having Mance Warner and Madman Fulton having a match.
Yeah, Danhausen
That's
will
gonna
be
be
here.
nuts.
Yeah, Danhausen and the champ, they're having a match. Yeah.
Talk about another guy that has owned his gimmick as Danhausen.
Oh, yeah.
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 Man.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to wrap up the debates for the week. Battle, tell everybody where and how they can find you and your podcast and everything you guys have going on.
Yeah. So you can find me. My personal Instagram and Twitter is Battle on Air. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/Battleground Podcast. If you want to check out the interviews that we have up there from our show, Battleground Podcast on Instagram. If you want to do that, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts from. And we just launched a new merchandise line, so you can get it at whatamaneuver.net. And I think that's it.
Awesome,
That's
man.
all I got.
We had a blast having you on, man. Look forward to having you on again, hopefully in the future.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to
It was
do
a lot
it
of fun,
again
man.
Definitely. Hey, just with a closing thought, I just wanted to let everybody know Tom doesn't like the Dark Order.
I never said I don't like the Dark Order.
I don't know. You
Don't
go
be
back and
twisting
listen
my
to
words.
past debates.
Don't twist my words.
Tom says he
Not
doesn't
what I
like
said.
Dark Order.
Tom,
Not
get
true.
in, man.
Get it in, bud.
The OG Fit Kid on Twitter and Instagram on every Wednesday. The Turnbuckle Sessions. Sam Roberts just dropped yesterday. Check it out. Last Wednesday.
That's it. Court is dismissed.